Well, good morning, good afternoon, good evening, depending on when you're watching this video. I'd like to introduce you to MELT. That's right, M-E-L-T, MELT. What's it stand for? Well, it stands for Mind, Emotion, Liberation Techniques. Okay, that sounds pretty funky and fancy. Well, let's decipher it. Mind, as in the way you think, what's in your head. Emotions is, some people narrow that down as being the E for energy, and then the word motion, energy in motion. It's a feeling, it's a movement. Liberation also means freedom, letting go. For example, letting go of a problem, and techniques is literally what it is. There's more than one way of achieving this and doing it. So I came up with the name MELT. So you can help your clients melt their problems away. They can just let things go as they melt away and feel good, for example. Now I'm talking in this term so you pick up and get the idea of the opportunities. Because with this video you'll see there's various logos that have been designed where the word MELT, M.E.L.T. has for example been made out of letters that are like ice that's melting, with underneath in brackets mind, emotion, liberation techniques. Making a logo you can use on your website and your advertising stuff to make you stand out from other hypnotherapists that don't offer MELT as a technique. I think it's the perfect add-on to my CMT, Complete Mind Therapy, which you can learn about in the Elite Hypnosis Bootcamp. Details of which obviously with this video I'll just go to elitehypnosisbootcamp.com. It's an add-on, but it's something that can be used individually and separate as well. There's three main elements of MELT, okay? Technique number one I use is something that in the past I used to refer to as CMT tapping, Complete Mind Therapy tapping, or Complete Mind tapping, which is an easy way of doing meridian therapy. Now the way to remember this is to, well, let me show you where I get people to tap. I get them to tap 3 times because 3 is the magic number, okay? So it's 3 times here, tap, tap, tap. 3 times here, 1, 2, 3. 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 Then we get them to hum happy birthday. And that's essentially the order of the tapping. But before we do that, as with any of these MELT techniques, we quantify how much of an issue their problem is by using subs. So that's a scale of how bad it is, okay? Now the way we do this is we say to them, okay, thinking about it right now, that habit, fear, addiction, phobia, or whatever the problem issue is, or emotional trauma, whatever it may be, we say thinking about that on a scale of 0 to 10, with 10 being at the top, the worst it ever was, like pulling your hair out, really terrible. How high up that scale is it? And you get a number from them. Then you do the MELT technique, in this case it was a tapping one, so tap, 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 hum happy birthday, and then we get them to try itself is the law of reversed effort, NLP, which implies they won't be able to, okay? We get them to try and feel that way again, and they'll notice that it feels different, and we can then immediately ask them, you know, on a scale of 0 to 10, with 10 being at the top, the worst it ever was in the past, when it was really at its worst, and 0 down here being nothing, gone completely, how much lower down now is that number? And more often than not, I'll give you a number that's lower, which serves as proof to them that it's less of a problem, and a change is genuinely taken place. Now it may go to 0, in which case problem solved. But you may need to use, if say it was at a 9 and then goes to a 7, you may then need to use a second MELT technique, that's why there's 3 different ones, to bring the number down again. Or it may then go to 0. That's why there's 3 techniques so you can work them down to 0. Now sometimes it's enough to get them to just a lower number, because you can say, you know what, that number as you think about it, is that at a level that you feel comfortable continuing your life with? And if it was an emotional trauma, they might go, actually I can deal with that now at a number 2. So you might not even need to get it to a 0. But if you do, you just keep going. Because each time their number gets lower, the more they come to believe that this is working, and the more likely it kicks in the placebo effect and the powerful effect of ritual. But the key to this is the suds thing. Okay? Look back at the video again, but I'll briefly explain. You can watch it as many times as you want, but there was a trick involved. The first time we want to prompt them to give a really high number, and the way we do that is with the physical, non-verbal suggestions. So we go, imagining your problem at the worst it ever was and has been and is at this moment, with 0 at the bottom here being no problem, going all the way up to 10, the worst it's ever been, the worst it's ever been, where it felt really bad, like pulling your hair out really bad. How high up is that number? And you notice that we've gone from 0 up to 10. How high up is it? How bad is it pulling you out? We're practically saying, give us a high number. Then we do the ritual, which because it's a ritual seems important. So people buy into it and believe it, and because of that belief, it kicks off the placebo effect. They expect it to work, so it does. Combined with the fact that then we say, now just try to think of it the way you did in the past, implying it's in the past and no longer like that. And then we go, so, on a scale of 0 to 10, with 10 up here being the worst it ever was in the past when you rip your hair out, or when you used to rip your hair out, and 0 down here, 0 being nothing, gone completely. How much lower down is that number now? And you can see all the physical actions are implying. Watch that back a few times and you'll soon get the hang of it. And when they say a lower number, they're basically saying it's changed for the better, which then means they believe a genuine change has taken place, and then arguably, when they believe it has, because it's all about just manipulating their belief systems. So, that we use before and after every melt technique. Melt technique number 1, as I say, is the CMT, complete mind tapping, which I remember as simply as this. We tap 3 times at the spectacles, or the third eye, the testicles, or rather just above the groin area, wallet, right hand side, shoulder area, and watch the left hand side shoulder area, then the top lip 3 times, can't believe I'm getting away with this, and then we get them to hum happy birthday, because it's practically your birthday, you're getting paid to do a weird psychological ritual, so we put it together and we get them to go tap tap tap, 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 and then it can be helpful to tell them just to blink twice, or 3 times ideally, because everything's been in 3, so blink, 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 and then breathe out. Because breathing out is like a sigh of relief, it gives a physical feeling of letting go, it's a metaphor, and then immediately go, now try to think of the problem you once had in the past, the way it used to be, past, used to be, all implying it's been left behind, and try implying you no longer can do it. And then you go into your suds thing. 10 is as it was in the past when it was at the worst, 0 down here, nothing, gone completely, how much lower is it? That's step 1 of melt. So, step 2 of melt, or rather technique 2 that I use, is quite literally what I remember, the way I remember it, is to change everything. So what I say to the client is, it doesn't matter whether they've got a fear, habit, addiction, phobia or whatever, I just kind of say to them, okay, John, assuming their name is John, John, just close your eyes, take a few moments, take a nice deep breath in through your nose, then out through your mouth. In through your nose and then out through your mouth. It just helps oxygenate the bloodstream and genuinely does help them feel as though they're relaxed a bit, because then that makes them feel good and they feel like something's taking place. So now what I'd like you to do is just take a few moments to get a sense of a feeling in your body of where, when you think about that problem you had in the past, and I'm saying had in the past, which implies it's already becoming more disassociated, but I say when you think about that, okay, somewhere in your body you'll get a feeling, and I want you to put your hand on there on the count of 3. 1, 2, 3. Now, quite often they put it around the chest area or somewhere on the body, but it doesn't matter. I've had it whether they put the hand on the leg, on the arm, on the head. It really doesn't matter where. You work with it and react as though it's the most natural thing on the planet, and that always happens. Just act natural and they'll believe that's what's meant to happen. So we say, put your hand on the count of 3 in the area onto the area of your body where you get that feeling. 1, 2, 3. Fantastic. And then put their hands somewhere. And then we say, brilliant, John, what I'd like you to do now is just imagine that where that feeling inside you is an object, okay? Now this can be any shape, any size, any colour, any texture that you desire. Whatever feels right for you, but at the moment, obviously, it's a little bit broken, a little bit malfunctioning, because you don't really want this problem, habit, fear, addiction, or phobia. Obviously, you say things that are appropriate to fit. So what we need you to do on the count of 3 is just imagine taking hold of that object and pulling it out of your body with your eyes tightly closed. But imagine and physically make the movement with your arm. 1, 2, 3. And you get them to move their hand as though they're pulling out an object. And then we say to them, okay, John, in your mind's eye, look down and imagine it's almost as if, and we say almost as if, so that if they're not wonderful at visualising things bright, it doesn't matter when we say it's almost as if you can see it, because if they can't see it and they're just thinking about it and saying it to themselves, that's fine, because it's almost like anyway, so it always seems right. So it's almost as if, as you look down with your eyes closed at that object being pulled out, you can get a sense and a feeling of what size it is, what shape it is, what colour it is, what texture it is, what it smells like, what it tastes like, and how it moves. As you probably guessed, by getting them to say these things to them, to get them to imagine its size, its shape, its colour, how it tastes, smells, feels, does it have a sound or anything? We're using what in NLP they call VACOG, visual, auditory, kinesthetic, factory, and gustatory. So whatever their representational system is guaranteed to be covered in there. But also, we're using everything that's possible. Now essentially as the key, you're just going to change everything. So you ask them in a way that feels right for them to change the colour of the object, whether that's by painting it, or adding sticky back plastic, or gluing coloured paper onto it. It doesn't matter, whatever feels right for them. Change the colour of it to a colour they know will no longer ever bother them, worry them or concern them as it once did in the past. Get them to imagine that and then get them to nod their head or say yes when they've done it. You then get them to imagine changing the texture of it. So if it used to be rough, they're going to make it smooth. If it used to be prickly, they might want to make it shiny. It's up to them, but they take whatever texture it was and change it. So if it was rough, they might imagine using sandpaper to smooth it. If it was prickly, they might imagine taking scissors and cutting the spikes off. But you use the phrase in a way that feels right for you. Change the feeling of that object so that you know it can no longer bother you, worry you or concern you. Then you get an affirmation of yes. You do the same, so change the colour, the texture. You get them to change the shape of the object by moulding it or hitting it with a hammer or with welding equipment, cutting it apart and fixing it into a different shape. However, the more bizarre the image, the better it will work. And always we use the phrase in a way that feels right for you. And we go through with everything. So also, what's it taste like if you were to lick it? What's it smell like? Change the smell. Maybe with air freshener, maybe by covering it in flowers or using a magic smelly paint. So that we change everything. The size of it, the colour, the shape, what it feels like, tastes like, smells like, and looks like. And when we got them to change all those and they confirm they've done it to a manner that's right for them, we then tell them they need to put it back into the place where they took it from, where it once in the past, again, saying we're leaving it behind, where it used to bother them, but now in a manner where it feels right for them, they need to place it back in. And finally, they need it to move in a different direction than it did before. So it's got a different movement, one that's positive, uplifting, successful, happy, calm, relaxed and content for them in a way that feels right for them. We leave all the decisions to them because their unconscious mind will make the right decision for them. And at which point, they've changed it. It's moving in a different direction, it's a different colour, a different shape, a different texture. Everything's changed, that's why it's called change work. And ultimately, then you get them to open their eyes, blink 3 times, Breathe in, and then just let it all out. Letting go, and then you do the 0 to 10 thing again, which you can watch the video back from the beginning and learn the psychological ploys behind that ensure the number goes down, convincing them they've made a change, which means it does become their reality. Melt technique number 3 is literally melt. You get them with their eyes closed to take a few nice deep breaths in through the nose and out through the mouth. This can be done in a hypnotic trance, or it can be done literally just by asking them to close their eyes and take a few nice deep breaths in through the nose and then out through the mouth. And you ask them to think of that used to bother them, the emotional issue, or the habit, addiction, fear or phobia, whatever it may be, you get them to think of it and to give it a name. Now, if it's for weight loss, it might be naughty foods. It doesn't matter what the name is they come up with, whatever feels right for them. So they come up with a name, and then ask them to imagine it. It's almost as if they can see that name spelt out in giant 3D ice sculpture letters in their mind's eye. And now, whatever way feels right for them, whether it's using a blowtorch, wood, petrol and a lighter, a fire, a bonfire, a blowtorch, maybe, radiators, or household heaters, doesn't matter, however bizarre it may be, they imagine in their mind's eye heating up that ice sculpture so it starts to melt. So in their mind they visualise the word that symbolises that problem they used to have, that issue they used to have that used to bother them. They visualise it melting. And you tell them to take a few moments to do that, and then you go, I'm going to count to 3, on the count to 3 it's going to melt 100 times quicker. 1, 2, 3, and melting. Really rapidly melting, quicker and quicker and quicker. And you verbally guide them into it melting more, and then you say, and it's almost melted completely, and you notice that on the floor, it's almost as if there's a grid or a drain, holes in the floor where that water can drain away completely, so it can go completely, gone forever, so it can no longer bother you, worry you or concern you as it once did in the past. Not yet if you understand, and tell me when that water's drained away, gone completely. Which they end up doing, and then you can tell them to take a few moments to just open their eyes, come back to the room, blink 3 times, take a nice deep breath in through the nose, and then just let it all out. And then you do your 0 to 10 again and prove to them how the number's gone down lower. That's melt technique number 3. And finally, melt technique number 4, which is more relevant to instilling a new future, is to have them imagine in their mind's eye, with their eyes closed, a big huge block of ice, and to imagine in a way that feels right for them, whether it's using a chisel and a hammer, or it's using a blowtorch or whatever, melting or chipping away at the ice to make a 3D symbol, whether that be a word, if they want, or an image that represents their perfect future, the perfect them. And that when they've got that image there, and it means to them internally, that image in their mind's eye, it's almost as if it means to them as 100% total reality that X, Y and Z, whatever they desire, will occur and become their reality. Then you tell them in their mind's eye to imagine encasing that ice sculpture into a freezer, like a fridge freezer, in a way that feels right for them, and then do up the combination on the safe, or a padlock on it, or weld it closed, or whatever, however daft it may seem to other people, whatever feels right for them is what's going to be right for them, so that they know positively and truly within themselves that nothing can ever alter that or affect it, and it will grow stronger and more positive in their life. You could, of course, also get people to imagine, maybe, to get rid of a problem from the past, a thermometer, and at the moment, the more that it's an issue, obviously the temperature will be quite high on the thermometer, so then you could get them to imagine putting ice cubes and cold water sprayed onto the thermometer, which would make it cold, so the temperature would drop, and as the temperature on the thermometer drops, so in reality, as an automatic reflex action, as they imagine that dropping on the thermometer, so in reality, in real life, they feel that it drops and it no longer bothers them, worries them or concerns them as it once did in the past. In other words, the term MELT, M.E.L.T., mind emotion liberation techniques, although used by me with the complete mind tapping, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. Also used by me by the changing everything and also taking the ice word and melting it, or creating the ice sculpture, or making the temperature drop with the ice. There are different ways I use it, but also it can be an idea for you to create your own techniques that you can use. It's about getting people to believe, going through a believable ritual, and because they're going through a ritual, they believe it's real, and because they believe it's real, they come to believe this will work for them. And the more you non-verbally suggest things have changed, which those techniques do, watch them back again, and you'll see the non-verbal suggestions. And also use terminology like, when it used to bother you in the past, which is a suggestion it's now gone, the more these things will work. The things I used before, or sometimes independently of my complete mind therapy, which you obviously can learn in the Elite Hypnosis Bootcamp. Hope you've enjoyed this. There's some further detail in the accompanying PDF, but the great thing is you've now got a certificate that you can use that says you are a melt practitioner. You can help melt your clients' problems away with mind, emotion, liberation techniques, and there's various logos you can use on your website. Thank you for studying this. Have fun with Mel. Let us know your ideas and how to expand on this.